The words sliced through the air like shattered glass. I stood in the living room of my penthouse, the one I bought at 28 with my own money, the one with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a city that told me I didn't belong here, staring at the man I was supposed to marry in 4 weeks. Richard Ryan, with his perfect smile and designer suit that cost less than my monthly HOA fees, crossed his arms over his chest. "I'm dead serious, Diane," he said, his voice cold and transactional. "The wedding doesn't happen unless you transfer the penthouse, both cars, and your investment accounts into my name. It's the only way to prove you're really committed to this marriage." My heart didn't just pound. It seized. The late afternoon sun streamed through those floor-to-ceiling windows I'd dreamed about since I was a girl in a neighborhood where owning anything felt impossible. The light hit the cream Italian leather sofa where we'd planned our honeymoon just last Sunday. Everything looked the same, but I knew with absolute certainty that nothing would ever be the same again. "You want me to transfer everything into your name?" I repeated slowly, each word careful, making sure I heard this man correctly. "Everything." Richard walked to the windows, looking out at the Chicago skyline like he already owned the view. His mother, Wendy, sat perfectly still on my sofa, her hands folded in her lap, her smile thin and satisfied. "When we get married, we'll be one, Diane. What's yours should be mine. It's only fair." Fair. That word hit me like a slap. Fair. What's up, fam? Welcome back to the channel. Before the story begins, smash that like button and hit subscribe if you haven't already. Drop a comment down below and let me know where you're watching from. I want to know how far our story travels. The silence after my no stretched like a wire pulled too tight. Richard's face shifted through confusion, disbelief, then something darker. Anger. "Diane, don't be ridiculous. We need to discuss this like adults." He turned to his mother like she was backup, like this was a negotiation they'd rehearsed. Wendy leaned forward on my sofa, her expression dripping with manufactured concern. "Sweetheart, I know this seems sudden, but you have to understand. My son needs to feel like a man in this relationship. It's emasculating for him when you own everything and he." She paused delicately, "contributes what he can." My chest tightened. The room tilted slightly, and I gripped the edge of the marble countertop to steady myself. My hands trembled against the cool stone. "Emasculating," I repeated, tasting the bitterness of that word. "My mother's right," Richard said, his voice taking on that edge I'd heard more and more lately. "Everyone thinks it's weird that you own everything. The penthouse, both cars, all those investment accounts you're always talking about. It makes me look like..." "Like what?" My voice came out sharper than I intended. "Like you lease a BMW you can barely afford? Like you've missed 3 payments this year alone." Richard's jaw clenched. Wendy's eyes went cold. "You have 72 hours to think about this, Diane," he said, straightening his designer suit jacket. "Transfer everything into my name by Sunday, or I'm calling off the wedding. And you can explain to 200 guests why you're too selfish to commit to a real partnership." They left together, Wendy touching his arm like he was the wounded party, like I was the villain in their carefully constructed narrative. I stood in my penthouse, and let myself feel everything I'd been pushing down for months. The way Richard's face tightened whenever I mentioned a new client contract. His jokes about me acting white when I used industry terminology, like my education was a betrayal instead of an achievement. The time he'd introduced me to his colleagues as his very successful fiancé, the words wrapped in something that wasn't quite pride. The way I'd started making myself smaller to make him comfortable. My phone rang. Shanice. My business partner, my best friend since Howard University, the only person who'd tell me the truth even when it hurt. "Girl, what happened? Your text scared me. Come over. Bring wine. The expensive kind." She arrived 40 minutes later with 2 bottles of Camus and murder in her eyes. I told her everything while we sat on my balcony, the city lights spread out below us like proof of what I'd built. "Let me get this straight," Shanice said, refilling both our glasses. This man who you've been supporting emotionally, financially, and socially for 2 years, Wants you to transfer your entire empire into his name to prove you love him. His mother thinks I'm emasculating him. His mother can. Shanice stopped, breathed, started again.
Diane.
Baby, you know what this is, right? This is a con. This is what predators do. They find successful women, especially successful Black women, and they weaponize our fear of being too much. Something crystallized in my chest. Not panic.
Not shame.
Something colder. Something dangerous. He wants to play games with a Black woman who built an empire from nothing? I set down my wine glass and looked at my best friend. Let's show him what that actually means. Shanice smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Now you sound like the Diane I know. What do we need? First, I said, pulling out my laptop, we need to find out exactly who Richard Ryan really is. And I have a feeling he's not going to like what we discover. The city glittered below us, and for the first time in hours, I felt like I could breathe. I did what I do best. I researched. By 3 a.m., my laptop screen illuminated my face in the dark penthouse, spreadsheets and browser tabs multiplying like evidence at a crime scene. Richard's LinkedIn profile looked pristine: finance consultant, University of Michigan MBA, connections at every major firm. But I wasn't looking at the surface. I was looking at the patterns. 3 jobs in 4 years. Employment gaps he'd explained away as consulting transitions. And there, buried in his connection list, a face that made my stomach drop: Dr. Kendra Williams. Cardiologist. Northwestern Memorial. Engagement announcement from 3 years ago that disappeared 6 months later. I found her Instagram, then her email through the hospital directory. My message was simple. We need to talk about Richard Ryan.
Please.
It's urgent. She called me at 7 a.m. I knew he'd do this again, Kendra said, her voice tight with anger that hadn't faded in 3 years. I just didn't know who to warn. I gripped my phone. Tell me everything. The story spilled out like a script I was already living. The whirlwind romance, the engagement after 8 months, the way Richard's resentment grew every time she mentioned her salary or her achievements. His mother, Wendy, always there, always concerned, always suggesting that successful women needed to make their men feel needed. Then came the ultimatum, Kendra said. He wanted my house, my savings, everything in his name before the wedding. Said I was emasculating him with my success. Said his mother thought it was inappropriate for the woman to have more. My hand trembled. What made you walk away? $75,000 in gambling debts. I hired a private investigator when something felt wrong. Richard's been running this con for years, Diane. He specifically targets successful Black women because he knows we're vulnerable to that narrative. That we're too much, too successful, too intimidating. He weaponizes our insecurities and respectability politics, then disappears with whatever he can get. The room spun. His mother coaches him. I found text messages. She tells him exactly what to say, how to pressure us, when to play the tradition card. Kendra paused. I'm sorry I didn't warn people publicly. I was ashamed. I felt stupid. You're not stupid. Neither am I. But I'm not staying silent. I hired the same private investigator Kendra used. Marcus Thompson, former FBI, now specialized in financial fraud. His report arrived 24 hours later. Richard frequented underground poker games in River North, owed money to 3 different lenders, and his debt had ballooned to $75,000 in the 18 months since he'd met me. Since he'd started planning his exit strategy. The credit report confirmed it. Every dollar of debt accumulated after our first date. Then I found the text thread. Marcus had access to Richard's cloud backup. Don't ask me how, and there it was. Messages between Richard and Wendy going back months. She's almost ready. Keep pressuring the tradition angle. Tell her about being emasculated. Black women are terrified of that label. 3 weeks until payday. Stay consistent. Payday. That's what I was to him. When Richard called on day 3, his voice honey-sweet with manipulation, I played along. I've been thinking about what you said. Maybe you're right. Maybe I have been inconsiderate of how this looks. I knew you'd see reason, baby. The relief in his voice made me sick. We can go to the bank Monday morning. Monday's perfect. I lied. I hung up and called my lawyer, then my financial advisor. By midnight, every account had biometric verification. Every asset had additional legal protection. My cars had GPS trackers and immobilizers installed. The Penthouse security system got an upgrade that would make the Pentagon jealous. Shanice found me at 2 a.m., still working. You need sleep. I need justice. I looked at the evidence spread across my dining table. He wanted to exploit me for being a successful black woman. He's about to learn what happens when you underestimate one. The locksmith arrived at 6 a.m., while Richard was supposedly at his morning workout, the one that had become suspiciously regular after I'd started making good money. I watched through the Ring camera as new locks slid into place, each one a barrier between my past naivety and my protected future. Facial recognition's active, the security tech said, demonstrating the upgraded system on his tablet. He won't even get past the lobby. Richard's belongings sat in 3 designer suitcases by the door. His leased golf clubs, the ones he'd bought to impress clients he never landed. His Tom Ford suits purchased on my credit card during a moment of weakness I now recognized as manipulation. Everything he'd brought into my space, packed and ready for removal. Everything except the $5,000 custom tuxedo hanging in my closet. That had a different destination. By 9 a.m., I was in my bank's private client office, Shanice beside me with her lawyer's instinct for loopholes. I need verbal password protection on all accounts, I told Marcus Rivera, my wealth manager. No transactions, no access requests, no inquiries without it. What's the password? I smiled, unbothered. Marcus didn't ask questions. He'd been managing my money since the Penthouse purchase. He knew me.
Done.
I'm also flagging your social security number for fraud alerts. If anyone tries to open credit in your name, you'll know immediately. The lawyer's office was next. Patricia Chun, a partner at one of Chicago's most aggressive litigation firms, read through my evidence with the focused intensity of a surgeon examining an X-ray. This is fraud conspiracy, she said finally. I'm drafting cease and desist letters to both Richard Ryan and Wendy Ryan. They contact you, they contact your assets, they even think about you too hard. We'll bury them in litigation. How fast can you move? Letters delivered by courier within the hour. The DMV was surprisingly efficient. Both cars re-registered with enhanced GPS tracking that would alert me if they moved more than 50 feet from my building. The Tesla and Range Rover weren't just mine on paper anymore. They were fortified. Then came the hard part. I need to cancel everything, I told Stephanie, my wedding planner, over coffee at her Gold Coast office. The venue, the caterer, the photographer. All of it. Stephanie's face softened with understanding that told me she'd seen this before. 200 guests. 75,000 in deposits. Some of it's non-refundable, Diane. I know. I handed her a folder. Here's documentation of why. My lawyer says some vendors will be sympathetic to fraud circumstances. Leave it with me. Back at the Penthouse, Shanice photographed everything while I worked. The packed suitcases, the changed locks, the upgraded security panel. Documentation for what I knew was coming. What about the tuxedo? She asked. I pulled it from the closet, still in its garment bag, monogrammed with Richard's initials. $5,000 of arrogance wrapped in Italian wool. New beginnings, I said, naming the nonprofit that helped formerly incarcerated black men find employment. They run a program preparing guys for job interviews. They can use a Tom Ford tuxedo more than Richard ever did. Shanice's grin was wicked. You're giving his wedding tuxedo to a re-entry program? Call it wealth redistribution. That evening, I created a timeline. Every moment of manipulation, every red flag I'd ignored, every instance of Richard weaponizing my success against me. Screenshots of text messages, dates of suspicious behavior, credit card statements showing his spending on my accounts. Everything backed up to 3 separate cloud services and sent to Patricia. The evidence was overwhelming. The fortress was complete. My phone buzzed. Richard, Hey babe, looking forward to Monday. This is the right decision. I stared at his message, then at the empire I'd just protected. At the locks he couldn't breach, the accounts he couldn't access, the life he'd tried to steal. Monday's going to be very educational for you, I typed back. Then I deleted it and sent something simpler. See you then. Let him think he'd won. For 48 more hours, let him believe the con was working. Then I'd show him exactly what happens when you try to rob a queen. I sat in the coffee shop across from Giuseppe's fine tailoring, watching through the window as Richard discovered his tuxedo was gone. Even from 50 feet away, I could see the exact moment Giuseppe delivered the news. Richard's face went from confusion to disbelief to rage, so pure it radiated through the glass. His mouth moved in what I knew were shouts, his hands gesturing wildly. Giuseppe stepped back, clearly alarmed. My phone rang 30 seconds later. You gave away my tuxedo? Richard's voice cracked with fury. A $5,000 custom Tom Ford. You gave it to some fucking charity? I took a slow sip of my latte, watching him pace on the sidewalk. I know about Kendra Williams. Silence.
Then, who?
Dr. Kendra Williams. Cardiologist. Your previous fiancé. The one you tried this exact same scam on 3 years ago. I paused, let it sink in. I know about the $75,000 in gambling debts. I know about the text messages with your mother. I know everything, Richard. The mask didn't just slip. It shattered. You stupid bitch, he hissed, his voice transforming into something I'd never heard before. You think you're so fucking smart? You're just another. He caught himself, but barely. The slur hung in the air, unspoken but absolutely present. Say it, I said coldly. Say what you've been thinking this whole time. I want to hear it. You're going to regret this. I'll ruin your reputation. I'll tell everyone you're a crazy. Bitter? Tell them what? That I refuse to hand over my assets to a con artist. I stood up, still watching him through the window. I've already sent emails to every single person invited to our wedding. Screenshots of your texts with Wendy. Timeline of your debts. Kendra's testimony. Try me. I hung up. The email had gone out an hour earlier. Subject line. Why there won't be a wedding. I debated the wording for days, but ultimately decided truth was the only option. My father called within minutes, his voice shaking with protective rage. I'm flying out there right now. That man will not. Dad, I've got this. I promise. My mother's text was simpler. I knew something was off about him. A mother knows. My brother's message made me laugh despite everything. Say the word, and he'll need a dentist. But Richard wasn't done. At 9 p.m., my security system alerted me to 4 people in the lobby. Richard, Wendy, and 2 men I didn't recognize. The doorman's voice crackled through the intercom. Ms. Quinto, there are some people here demanding to see you. Don't let them up. Through the lobby camera, I watched Richard argue with the doorman, then storm toward the elevator bank. The system denied his old biometric scan. His face twisted with humiliation as Wendy touched his arm, whispering something that looked like strategy. They took the stairs. When they reached my floor, I was waiting behind my reinforced door, phone recording. Richard's voice echoed through the hallway. Diane, open this door right now. You think you're so smart because you went to some fancy schools? You're just another. Young man, that is enough. Mrs. Patterson from 3408, 70 years old, and taking exactly zero bullshit, stood in her doorway in a silk robe. You're going to lower your voice in this building, or I'm calling the police. This doesn't concern you, Richard snapped. A man screaming racial slurs in my hallway absolutely concerns me. Mrs. Patterson already had her phone out. You have 10 seconds to leave. Wendy pulled at Richard's arm. Come on. This isn't worth it. Richard's parting shot, delivered directly to my Ring camera. You'll regret this, Diane. I promise you'll regret this. The footage was pristine. Audio and video, his threats, the slur he'd almost completed, Wendy's presence confirming conspiracy. Patricia had the restraining order filed by midnight. I texted Shanice. It's done. He knows. And now everyone else does too. Her response, "How do you feel?" I looked around my penthouse, my fortress, my empire, my truth. Free. I published the Medium post at midnight on a Tuesday, titled, "How My White Fiancé and His Mother Tried to Steal My Black Excellence." No names. Just facts, screenshots redacted enough to avoid legal trouble, but clear enough to show the pattern. By Thursday morning, it had 500,000 views. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Hashtag Black Women Deserve More was trending on Twitter. Women were sharing their own stories of financial manipulation in the comments, each one a variation of the same script. Charm, engagement, weaponize insecurity, demand everything, disappear. Then Wendy called. "You have some nerve," she hissed, her concerned mother act completely gone. "You're destroying my son's reputation with your lies. He could sue you for defamation." I put her on speaker so Shanice could hear. "Your son destroyed his own reputation, Wendy. You just helped him do it more efficiently. You bitter vindictive. I have the text messages where you coached him."
She's almost ready.
"Keep pressuring the tradition angle. Remember those?" I paused. "My lawyer does." She hung up. The comments section became a revelation. Kendra posted publicly, "I'm the previous victim mentioned in this article. Everything described here happened to me 3 years ago.
Same man.
Same mother. Same playbook." Then 2 more women came forward. Simone, a corporate attorney in Detroit. Monica, a tech VP in Austin. Richard had been running this con for 6 years, moving cities when the heat got too close, always targeting successful Black women who were vulnerable to the narrative that they were too much. A DM appeared from someone unexpected, Jennifer Kowalski, one of Richard's former colleagues. "He told us you were difficult to work with," she wrote. "Said you were controlling and obsessive about money. Now I understand. You weren't falling for his bullshit. I'm so sorry we believed him." By week 3, the Chicago Tribune called. Then NBC. Then Good Morning America. Tech executive exposes financial predator targeting successful Black women ran on the local evening news. My phone exploded with interview requests. "Don't do it," my father urged. "Keep your privacy." But Shanice understood. We sat on my balcony, the city spread below us like always, and she said what I was thinking. "Do it. Not for revenge, for the sisters coming after us. So they recognize the pattern before they lose everything." I accepted the NBC interview. Richard's attorney sent a cease and desist the next day. Patricia read it during our call, then laughed so hard she had to put me on hold. When she came back, "He's threatening to sue you for telling the truth about things he actually did, with evidence you actually have. This letter is toilet paper with a law firm logo." The interview was scheduled for Monday. National television. My face, my name, my story. That night, I stood at my windows looking at the city that had tried to tell me I didn't belong in penthouses like this. The city where I'd proven them wrong, then almost given everything away to a man who saw my success as something to steal rather than celebrate. My phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. "Thank you. I was 2 weeks from signing everything over to my fiancé. Your story saved me." I saved the message. Then another came. Then another. Individual pain was becoming collective purpose. And I was just getting started. The NBC interview aired on a Sunday morning. By Sunday night, my inbox had 10,000 messages. I read them until my eyes burned. Stories from Black women across the country, tech executives, doctors, lawyers, entrepreneurs, all targeted by men who saw their success as opportunity rather than achievement. Women who'd been called intimidating for earning 6 figures, emasculating for buying their own homes, difficult for refusing to shrink. One message stopped me cold. "Your story saved me. My fiancé just asked me to add him to my business accounts. I said no. Thank you for showing me it was okay to say no. Maya." I saved that one. And the hundreds like it. The Black Women's Business Summit invitation arrived Tuesday morning. "We'd be honored if you'd keynote our conference in Atlanta. Your voice matters." But Richard wasn't going quietly. His friends flooded social media with their version. Diane was obsessed with money, controlling, emasculated him on purpose. She played the race card when he just wanted a normal marriage. Black Twitter buried them in 48 hours. Hashtag Diane Quinto's goals trended for 3 days. Women posted their own penthouse photos, their Tesla keys, their investment statements with the caption, "Emasculate this." Then came the message I never expected. This is Amanda Ryan. I was married to Richard from 2015 to 2017. I stared at the name. Richard's ex-wife. The one he'd claimed was amicable and nothing dramatic. He did the same financial manipulation to me, forged checks, gambling debts, everything. I divorced him when I found out. I'm white, and he still did it. The gambling is real. I'm willing to testify if needed. The pattern was undeniable now. The Women's Economic Empowerment Network contacted me next. We want you to lead our financial literacy workshops. Teach women to protect themselves the way you did. I said yes to everything. The speaking engagements, the workshops, the interviews. My pain had purpose now. Martha's Vineyard in early summer was medicine I didn't know I needed. The Black elite community. Old money, new money, inherited wealth, self-made. They didn't treat my success like something suspicious. They celebrated it. Dinner parties where women discussed investment strategies and real estate portfolios without apology. No code switching required. And there, at a waterfront restaurant, I ran into Kendra Williams. We recognized each other instantly. She stood, and without speaking, we hugged like survivors of the same war. Because we were. "I'm sorry I didn't warn you publicly," she said over wine. "I'm sorry he got to you first." I paused. "But we're not victims anymore. We're veterans. And we're going to make sure no one else joins this club." We launched the petition together. The Financial Coercion Prevention Act. Stronger laws against forged documents, mandatory disclosures about gambling debts, protections for victims. Within a week, 50,000 signatures. Then Patricia called, her voice tight with controlled fury. "Richard tried to access your investment accounts this morning. Forged signatures on transfer requests. Marcus at the bank flagged it immediately." My hands trembled, but not with fear. With vindication. "Get me everything. Every document, every timestamp, every piece of evidence." Already done. "And Diane? This is felony fraud. The FBI is interested." I looked out at my city, the one that had tried to keep me out, the one I'd conquered anyway. "Good," I said. "Let them come." The knock came at 6 a.m., sharp and authoritative. Through my Ring camera, I saw them. 3 people in FBI windbreakers standing in my hallway. Detective Sarah Rodriguez held up her badge to the camera. "Miss Quinto, we need to speak with you about Richard Ryan." I opened the door in my robe, heart hammering. "What happened?" "He attempted to forge your signature on asset transfer documents valued at approximately $1.2 million. We arrested him 40 minutes ago at his apartment." Rodriguez's expression was professionally neutral, but something in her eyes looked satisfied. His mother, Wendy Ryan, was arrested as an accomplice. Conspiracy to commit fraud, aiding and abetting. My knees almost buckled. Shanice, who'd spent the night, appeared beside me. "They're in custody? Federal holding. Charges include wire fraud, identity theft, and attempted grand larceny." Rodriguez pulled out her tablet. "Your bank flagged the transfer attempt 2 days ago. We've been building the case since." By noon, it was everywhere. Mother-son duo arrested in elaborate scheme targeting Black professional women. My phone became a weapon of mass notification. Every news alert, another vindication. Marcus from the bank sent the documentation. Richard had attempted to transfer my entire investment portfolio, $1.2 million, using signatures he'd practiced on documents found on his computer. The FBI had seized his laptop, found tutorials on document forgery, legal strategies for asset seizure during divorce, Reddit threads on getting what you deserve from a rich girlfriend. Patricia called with updates throughout the day. For victims officially identified: Kendra Williams, Simone Baptiste, Jasmine Chun, and you. The dollar amount across all victims exceeds $3 million. $3 million. That's what Black women's trust was worth to Richard and Wendy. The preliminary hearing was on a Thursday. I sat in the gallery with Kendra, Simone, and Jasmine, women I'd never met but who felt like sisters forged in the same fire. We held hands as Richard was led in wearing an orange jumpsuit that erased every bit of his designer suit confidence. His lawyer, a slick white man in a too expensive suit, stood immediately. Your Honor, my client's reputation has been destroyed by Ms. Quinto, a vindictive woman who... Judge Martha Chen, a 60-year-old Chinese-American woman with zero patience, cut him off. Counselor, your client attempted to steal $1.2 million using forged documents. Stay on topic or sit down. Wendy's lawyer tried sympathy. Your Honor, Mrs. Ryan is simply a mother who wanted to help her son. She had no idea. The prosecutor, a Black woman named Aisha Thompson, stood with a folder thick enough to be a weapon. Your Honor, may I? She projected text messages on the courtroom screen. Wendy's words, preserved forever. Target the successful ones. They're insecure about being too much. Black professional women especially. They're terrified of being labeled aggressive or difficult. Use that. The courtroom went silent. She coached him specifically on exploiting racial insecurities. Aisha continued. This wasn't a mother helping her son. This was a criminal partnership. Judge Chun reviewed the evidence, her face hardening with each page. Bond denied for both defendants. Flight risk is substantial given the pattern of behavior across multiple cities. Richard's face crumpled. Wendy closed her eyes. Outside, reporters swarmed. I stood on the courthouse steps with Kendra, Simone, and Jasmine, our hands linked. For every Black woman who's been told she's too much, I said into the microphones. For every woman told to shrink, to apologize, to hand over what she built, this is for you. The system heard us. Finally. That night, Shanice raised her wine glass in my penthouse. How does vindication feel? I looked around my fortress, still standing, still mine. Like freedom. The courthouse was packed the day the trial began. National media lined the steps, cameras pointed at every entrance. Inside, the gallery filled with faces I recognized, supporters, survivors, women who'd sent messages saying, this could have been me. Aisha Thompson's opening statement was surgical. The prosecution will prove that Richard Ryan and Wendy Ryan operated a systematic scheme to defraud successful Black professional women by weaponizing racial insecurities and traditional gender expectations. She clicked through slides. For victims, pattern evidence spanning 6 years. Forensic document analysis showing identical forgery techniques, text messages between mother and son that read like a criminal playbook. When they called me to testify, I walked to that stand in a navy blue suit, powerful, professional, unapologetic. Aisha guided me through the timeline. The ultimatum. The $75,000 in gambling debts. The text from Wendy coaching Richard. She's almost ready. Keep pressuring the tradition angle. Richard's lawyer, Gregory Walsh, stood for cross-examination with the confidence of a man who'd never lost to a Black woman. Ms. Quinto, isn't it true that you're somewhat obsessed with money? Your net worth, your assets, your investments. I looked directly at the jury. I'm not obsessed with money, Mr. Walsh. I'm obsessed with not letting anyone steal what I earned while fighting barriers your client will never experience. The jury shifted. Several nodded. Richard took the stand wearing a suit that couldn't erase the orange jumpsuit from everyone's memory. I love Diane, he said, voice breaking with practiced emotion. I just wanted to help manage her finances. She worked so hard, and I thought, as her future husband, I could take some of that burden. Aisha stood with a folder. Mr. Ryan, is it true you accumulated $75,000 in gambling debts in the 18 months you dated Ms. Quinto? Those were investments. Underground poker games are investments? She projected bank records. Is it true you've been banned from 3 Chicago casinos for debt? Richard's mask cracked. That has nothing to do with. Is it true you attempted the exact same asset transfer scheme with Dr. Kendra Williams 3 years ago? That's different. Different how? Because she's also a successful black woman? Or because she caught you before you could complete the fraud? The courtroom erupted. Judge Chin gavelled for silence. Wendy took the stand in pearls and a modest dress, playing the concerned mother. I just wanted to protect my son. These career women, they can be so. Aisha projected Wendy's text on the screen. These career women need strong men to manage them. Target the ones who code switch. They're already insecure about being too black or too white. Use it. Wendy's face drained of color. The parade of witnesses buried them. My business partners testified about my integrity. Richard's ex-wife Amanda described identical manipulation tactics. Dr. Patricia Morrison, an expert on financial abuse, explained how perpetrators specifically weaponize gender and racial stereotypes to destabilize victims. Mr. Ryan didn't just exploit relationships, Dr. Morrison testified. He weaponized the intersection of race and gender to make successful black women doubt their own worth. Aisha's closing argument echoed through the packed courtroom. This isn't about a failed relationship. This is about systematic exploitation. For women, 6 years, $3 million. Richard Ryan saw black women's success as opportunity. Wendy Ryan coached him on exactly how to steal it. The evidence is overwhelming. The pattern is undeniable. Justice demands accountability. The jury deliberated 6 hours. When they returned, the forewoman, a black woman in her 50s, stood. On all counts, we find the defendants guilty. Richard erupted. This is because I'm a white man and she's. Bailiff, remove him. Judge Chin said coldly. And Mr. Ryan, that outburst just guaranteed I'm considering maximum sentencing. They dragged him out, still shouting. Wendy sat frozen, tears streaming down her face. Kendra grabbed my hand. Simone and Jasmine flanked us. The 4 of us stood together as the judge set the sentencing date. Outside, reporters swarmed, but I felt calm, vindicated.
Free.
How does it feel? One shouted. I looked at the women beside me, at the crowd of supporters, at the future we were building. Like justice. Finally. But I knew the bigger work was just beginning. Judge Chun delivered the sentences, without ceremony. Richard Ryan, 8 years federal prison. Wendy Ryan, 3 years for conspiracy. They'd be out eventually, but their reputations were buried forever. I felt nothing watching them led away. They were already ghosts to me. I had an empire to build. Build Your Empire launched 6 weeks later in a downtown Chicago event space. 50 women showed up to that first workshop, doctors, lawyers, entrepreneurs, corporate executives, all learning asset protection, prenup strategies, financial independence. All learning to spot the Richards of the world before they got close. Maya was there, the woman who'd emailed me months ago. You saved me, she whispered during the break. I was about to add him to my business accounts. You saved yourself, I told her. You just needed permission to trust your instincts. My consulting firm exploded. 3 new Fortune 500 contracts in 6 months. Companies wanted the woman who dismantled a con artist with nothing but research and receipts. I hired 4 new employees. Shanice became COO. We were building something bigger than either of us had imagined. The Black Women's Leadership Summit invitation came in September. 5,000 attendees. Main stage. When I finished speaking about turning trauma into purpose, the standing ovation lasted 3 minutes. And that's where I met Marcus. He approached me after, a tall black man with kind eyes and a genuine smile. That was powerful. I'm Marcus Chun, investment banker, but don't hold that against me. He handed me his card. I'd love to buy you coffee and hear more about your nonprofit.
No peach, no angel.
Just conversation. Coffee turned into dinner. Dinner turned into months of slow, intentional dating. On our first real date, Marcus laughed and pulled out his phone. Here's my credit report.
Clean.
No secrets here. Just thought I'd lead with transparency. I laughed so hard I cried. He never felt threatened when I closed a major deal. never made jokes about my success. When I got promoted to partner in my own firm, he brought champagne and flowers to my office. "That's my baby," he told everyone, pride radiating from every word. I thought I had to choose between success and love. I told him one night on my balcony. Turns out I just needed to find someone secure enough for both. 1 year after the canceled engagement, I stood in a luxury resort in Turks and Caicos hosting the first annual Wealth and Wellness Retreat. 100 Black women entrepreneurs filled the conference room. CEOs, founders, executives, women building empires of their own. Maya was there, now running a thriving consulting firm. Kendra co-hosted, my best friend and business partner in everything. Simone and Jasmine led workshops on legal protection and real estate investment. That evening, we gathered on the beach. Women shared stories, how they'd left manipulative partners, how they'd learned to stop apologizing for success, how they'd found their power. My mother pulled me aside, tears in her eyes. "Baby, you didn't just protect yourself. You protected all of us." Marcus showed up with flowers, no agenda, just support. "Thought you might want these for tonight's closing speech," he said, kissing my forehead. Later, alone on my balcony overlooking the ocean, I pulled out my phone and recorded a voice note. "Dear 25-year-old Diane, who just bought that penthouse and wondered if you'd ever find someone who could handle your ambition, you will. But first, you'll find yourself. You'll learn that the right person doesn't ask you to shrink. They bring a telescope to see you better. Richard and Wendy are in prison. You're in paradise, surrounded by women you've helped set free. The empire you built? It can't be stolen. It can't be diminished. It's yours. And baby, you're just getting started." I listened to it once, then deleted it. I didn't need to send messages to my past self anymore. The woman I'd become was all the proof I needed. The empire stood. The fortress held. And I was finally, completely, unapologetically free. The ocean stretched before me, endless and powerful, exactly like the future I was building. Exactly like me. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. Are you in Chicago like Diane? Atlanta? London? Lagos? I want to know where my Build Your Empire community is building from. And tell me this. Have you ever had to protect yourself from someone who saw your success as something to exploit rather than celebrate? Your story matters. Your voice matters. Let's build this community together. Remember, the empire you build can't be stolen, not if you protect it like Diane did. Now, let's get to 10,000 subscribers. Let's make sure every person who needs to hear this story finds it. Let's protect each other.
Subscribe.
Like. Comment where you're from.